Sometimes a deck gets labeled as principally fun or non-competitive unjustly. This labeling typically occurs due to poor play and or poor deck design, which restricts the ability to tap into the general strengths and potential of the deck. In my opinion, the Galaxy deck has fallen into that kind of mischaracterization trap where not very many people even think it's competitive. So let's see if Galaxy cannot get its proper due with this deck design. Normally when focusing on an archetype-specific deck, I analyze all of the major options associated with the archetype in the deck build. For Galaxy and its partner in crime, Photon, there are simply too many options to conduct such an analysis without spending a lot of unnecessary time, so I will simply build the deck with some targeted deck discussion during the process. Starting off, and not surprisingly, the most important card in the Galaxy deck is Cxyz Photon Dragon, so I run 3 copies. I've seen some builds that only run 2. Not surprisingly, I disagree with that decision. I imagine the initial reasoning behind the 2/3 strategy is the belief that Photon Dragon is a bad draw, and a number of the combination plays with it occur with Dragon being in the graveyard, thus running 2 seems appropriate. While the logic is initially sound, it somewhat breaks down when actually playing the deck, as that one less copy of Photon Dragon available reduces the efficiency of both Soldier, Expedition, and Knight, in addition to some of the other support cards that a player might want to run for this deck. Cxyz's special summoning ability actually takes a little of the pressure off its level 8 standing with proper deck design. Realistically, this card's banish effect is almost kind of an add-on effect, for it rarely will become used unless facing a target that can't be destroyed via battle or trying to strip a powerful Xyz monster of its material. Obviously, another important card to this deck is Galaxy Knight. I run 3 copies of this card as well. Again, I've seen some builds that only run 2, which again makes little sense to me. Knight is one of the 2 key combination cards for this deck with Cxyz Photon Dragon, and it has even better summoning supplemental effects that reduce its bad draw ability than Cxyz Photon Dragon. Its normal summons is essential for producing the combination, so only running 2 copies reduces the number of times the combination can occur, both in magnitude and frequency, unless you design a deck with the recursion card like Beckoning Light, which I don't prefer in this deck. For a deck that has the principal strategy of summoning rank 8 Xyz monsters, having 3 copies of both Cxyz Photon Dragon and Galaxy Knight is important for efficiency and consistency. Yeah, you're going to get the occasional bad draw, but it's one of those situations where you, at least in my eyes, it's one of those situations where you increase the victory probability while slightly also increasing the bad draw probability in those horrible situations where it occurs. Galaxy Soldier is also an essential card for the deck, as the other chief combination card for Cxyz Photon Dragon and Galaxy Knight, so I run 3 copies. The typical combination with Soldier is to activate its special summoning ability, discarding Cxyz Photon Dragon to the graveyard, then searching for Knight, normal summoning Knight, using its normal summons ability to special summon a Cxyz Photon Dragon from the graveyard, more than likely the one you just put there with Soldier, and go into a rank 8 play. While this is the chief combination, Soldier's special summoning ability is important, even when this play is not available, to set up future plays because of its searching ability. Overall, Soldier is probably the most versatile card in the deck because it sets up a lot of your combinations either directly typically through the combination I just described, or indirectly through its searching effect. Galaxy Wizard is another essential card for a competitive Galaxy deck in my opinion, so I run 3 copies. The simple reality with Wizard is it will not stay on the field beyond probably a few seconds unless it gets its effect negated by an opponent's effect. For me, 90% of the time, Galaxy is going to use one of its 2 effects on its summon turn, upping its level to 8 in order to take advantage of a card like Expedition, or set up a rank 8 play, or it's going to tribute itself to add a Galaxy card to the hand. The other 10% of the time, I'm going to use it for a rank 4 play, or set it in defense position, because basically it's a top deck and I'm completely desperate. Because, hey, it's got 1800 defense, so it's not going to fold that quickly. Basically, though, if you're going to set Wizard, you better hope your opponent's top decking too, because even though it does have that 1800 defense, his Galaxy is a combo deck, and that 1800 is not going to last long. Finally, rounding out the Galaxy monsters, I run one copy of Galaxy Eyes Cloud Dragon. This card is fairly nice with one useful effect and one semi-useful effect, but the reason I only run it at one is the effect is conditional, and when I used to run it at 2 in the past, I just seemed to draw it far too often on my 7th or 8th card, so it'd just be sitting in my hand as a wasted card because I wouldn't have any Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragons in the graveyard. This card might be a little more useful if there was a more reasonable way to special summon it versus generic methods, for it is somewhat difficult to combo this card into a rank 8 play unless Expedition is involved, but upgrading from a 300 attack point monster to a 3000 attack point monster that has specific spell and trap support is definitely a good trade. For the non-Galaxy monsters, I run 3 copies of Photon Thrasher. I view this as a monster staple in Galaxy decks because it helps set up any rank 4 plays. Not many exist, but they do exist, as well as they increase the efficiency of Galaxy Knight, make him more live. Finally, I run 3 copies of Star Drawing, as it works nicely with Thrasher to produce an easy rank 4 play that nets a card, and it also works with Soldier to produce an easy rank 5 play that nets a card when you don't have Knight available, or you don't have a Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon sitting in the graveyard, so summoning Knight's a little less effective. Also, at 1600, it's not a complete liability on the field if an Xyz play is not available. The fact that it's Earth, not Light, a little annoying, but is also of limited consequence, for you really don't want to discard this card for Soldier's effect anyways. You want to summon it, you want to make Xyz plays with it. Note that while Guardian of Order is definitely a possibility for this type of the deck, I'm not a huge fan of it in this particular build. I just don't get a lot of efficiency out of it. Moving on to the spells, I run 3 copies of Galaxy Expedition. I feel this is the most important spell in the deck. This card both thins your deck a so-so draw and greatly enhances the effect of both Soldier and Wizard, helping you make rank 5 and rank 8 plays. Some may argue that 3 copies is too much and can produce some inefficiencies, and this viewpoint is probably correct from a pure math standpoint, as very rarely will all 3 copies be activated during the same duel. However, running 3 is still important to maximize the probability of activating at least 2 of those 3 copies. For most of the time, that 3rd copy is going to be generally irrelevant unless either you're incredibly unlucky or the duel goes incredibly long. Photon Sanctuary is one of the cards that produces what I feel is kind of a defining line between a can be competitive Galaxy deck and this is not at all competitive Galaxy deck. So I run 3 copies. After a cursory reading of its effect, one might not be really that impressed because you get 2 tokens that can attack, and while they have 2000 attack points, they're summoned defense mode. They have 0 defense. They can't be used as synchro material. What's so great about this card? Well, the tokens have critical elements associated with them. They do have attacks of 2000, so if they survive a turn, while you can't attack, you can turn them into attack mode and they act as decent walls. They are named photon tokens. That naming as a photon is really important because it increases the ability to utilize Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon special summoning effect, as well as Galaxy Knight's normal summoning effect. Basically, you can tribute both tokens to special summon Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, increasing its utility in hand. It's not such a dead draw anymore. And because they're photon tokens, you can activate Galaxy Knight's normal summon supplemental effect and pull a Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon from the graveyard, make your rank 8 play. So basically, Photon Sanctuary produces tokens that increases both the utility of Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon and Galaxy Knight, making them less bad draw-ish. And they also produce walls. Even if they're in defense mode, it's still something your opponent has to run through or use a card effect to get rid of. I run 2 copies of Accellight to maximize the probability of getting a wizard or a cloud dragon when the situation warrants it. There is definitely an inefficiency potential associated with running 2 copies over 1 copy, but this decision is similar to running the 3 copies of Galaxy Expedition, and based on play experience, where the increased probability of getting the first one in the hand outweighs the negative probability of possibly having a second copy without a target or being in a bad situation. Most of the time, this card will combo with Wizard by summoning Wizard from the deck using its level increasing effect, and then either using Expedition or using Sanctuary, and then special summoning a Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon from the hand for a rank 8 play. So the normal summons, while it can be annoying because you can't use Knight, you can get around it. Due to the space demand by archetype-specific spells, I only have room for 3 of my typical 5 staples, so I run 1 Raigeki, 1 Book of Moon, and the 1 Soul Charge. No Dark Holes for this main deck, but I do side them. While I've seen a number of decks run the 7th one in an attempt to produce a quick Tachyon Dragon, I find this strategy inconsistent and lacking. I do run a pair of rank up cards, but I run rank up Magic Argent Chaos Force. The reason I select this card is twofold. One, a vast majority of the Xyz plays for this deck will be rank 5 or higher, and its lack of a type-specific requirement allows effective movement between a material lacking rank 8 and a new rank 9. For those wondering, I do not use this card for Dark Matter because it can evolve naturally by a Galaxy Eyes Xyz. Instead, you'll see the principal target for this card when we get to the extra deck. It's fairly nasty, and some might already know what I'm talking about. The second reason I use it, once per duel, I can snatch a graveyard present Argent Chaos Force into my hand when I make a rank 5 or higher Xyz play, allowing me greater flexibility in play. One could argue, well, you can only because of that, you only really have to play 1, but again, it goes to that draw efficiency effect. I'm running 2 because of the higher probability of getting 1 into my hand at the beginning. Finally, closing out the spells, I run 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon to ward off annoyances like Fiendish Chain, Lose 1 Turn, Vanity's Emptiness, and the occasional Battle Trap. Because rank 8s, they have certain rank 8s to protect themselves, certain rank 8s can't. Now, before moving on to the traps, I'm sure some viewers have quizzical looks on their faces, realizing that I don't run any copies of Trade-In. There are 2 major reasons why I don't run Trade-In in this deck. First, while there are 6 possible targets, only the 3 copies of Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragons are actually good targets, for they don't mind being in the graveyard. I don't want to dump a Galaxy Knight into the graveyard, because it's an important combo piece, and with no easy way to get it back to either the deck or the hand outside running a card like Jar of Avarice or Beckoning Light, there's a lower probability than normal that the cards drawn from the trade-in will be more useful than the Knight I just dumped into the graveyard. Therefore, with only 3 good targets for trade-in, its appeal is limited. Second, Trade-In and Galaxy Expedition indirectly compete with one another in this deck. For example, every time Galaxy Expedition is activated, a vast majority of the time, you're either going to summon Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon or Galaxy Knight, and that will lose a target for trade-in, making it less efficient. Since I view Expedition as a more valuable card in this deck, I want to use its effect whenever possible, making trade-in less effective and less attractive. Overall, I think the big problem with trade-in in this deck is, outside of dumping a Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, the cards received from that draw are not significantly valuable to what's being lost, and the potential consistency born from running the deck. Now, if you want to create a build that runs more level 8 monsters, then trade-in will become much more effective, because those level 8 monsters may or may not have a lot of value in the deck. It might be more valuable to pitch like a Guardian of Order in effort to try to get a Galaxy Knight instead of the other way around. However, for the build I use, this potential benefit of drawing those cards doesn't outweigh the potential detriment of having to typically give up something you don't want to give up, or the inconsistency of trade-in just being a dead draw. For the trap cards, I run the three most important staples: one Torrential Tribute, one Bottomless Trap Hole, one Solemn Warning. While this deck does have a lot of special summoning potential, most of the time that summoning occurs in a kind of a big sequence over a single turn. Basically, you special summon 3 or 4 times in a turn, and then don't special summon for the next 3 turns, instead of special summoning 1 time each turn for 4 turns. Thus, I do run 1 Vanity's Emptiness to help support the rank 8 plays. Finally, I run 2 copies of Tachyon Transmigration, which can wreck large chain decks like Burning Abyss, and under the right conditions, which really aren't difficult to achieve. It can basically act as no worse than a kind of a different type of costless Solemn Judgment. The biggest problem with Transmigration, of course, is just having that appropriate card on the field to actually activate it. The activation from the hand is nice, but it's not one of those things that you really rave about. Finally, moving on to the extra deck. Since this is typically a rank 8 deck, you know what rank 8 you have to start with. I run 3 copies of Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand. Despite all of the emphasis on Galaxy-Eyes Photon Dragon and its rank 8 and 9 brethren, Felgrand is really the champ of the extra deck, and that's not surprising. It's Felgrand. I run 1 number 95 Galaxy-Eyes Dark Matter Dragon. While the Banish effect is not available, it's a double attack. It's a double monster attacking 4,000 hitter, and that's just fine in my book. I run 1 Galaxy-Eyes Full Armor Photon Dragon Light Dark Matter. You only get 1 of the 2 effects, but Full Armor really is a card you need access to if you desperately need to eliminate a card in the main phase 2, or for a material expended Galaxy Cxyz. I run 1 number 62 Galaxy-Eyes Prime Photon Dragon. It's a good option when you have a sufficient field. I run 1 number 107 Galaxy-Eyes Tachyon Dragon. It's your field effect negator and your field control in combination with Transmigration. Now, for that, go back to that rank up card I run. I run 2 copies of Cxyz Coach Lord Ultimatrainer. It's a 3800 attacker that cannot be targeted, that lets me draw at least once per turn, as long as it has Cxyz material. So it's a card that produces advantage by letting me draw. It's non-targeting aspect, and it's a 3800 attacker. Some of the people who are veterans of my deck build, they know I like Yazi. This is Yazi on every type of steroid you can put into Yazi. This is why I run that rank up card, because there's nothing like using Felgrand, messing your opponent over for 2 turns because of Felgrand's negation effect, and then playing your rank up card, putting this guy on the field, and having your opponent say, "Oh dang." Moving on, I run 1 Tiras, Keeper of Genesis. It's a nice power install card that frequently produces advantage due to its destruction effect. I run 1 Constellar Pleiades. You can only make this with the 2 soldiers because star drawing is Earth, but it's definitely a possibility, and it's quite nasty, especially in combination with Felgrand, because the soldiers can one soldier can search for another copy of soldier, and you can special summon that second copy of soldier to put Pleiades on the field. I run 1 Artifact Durendal, changing a destruction effect to a harmless, blow up some face down I just set for no real reason other than for the purpose of activating Durendal's effect. Very nice. This guy plus Ultimatrainer is probably game 99% of the time. And again, because of extra decks space issues, I only run 3 of what I view are the 4 rank 4 staples. 1 Exciton Knight, 1 number 101, and 1 Castell. Overall, when playing a Galaxy deck, one must remember that while Galaxy Eyes cards are the flash, Felgrand is the substance. When in doubt, make Felgrand. Overall, there are definitely some times when this deck will frustrate you due to some bad draws, but overall, due to the ease at which this deck can make rank 8 plays, and based on the strength of those monsters and the 2 rank 9s available, this deck can consistently compete with other rogue decks in the meta, and it can even take down tier 1 decks from time to time. Well, that's my Galaxy deck. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.